Hey bag ladies and bag dudes, today I'm going to be talking about the seam guide, the summer sampler quilt along, Moda grunge fabrics, the Glam clam quilt pattern and template. The demonstration will be for how to make a double-sided strap, and there's a great giveaway at the end. I'm Sarah Lawson from Sew Sweetness. Thanks so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday, my weekly sewing chat. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on this lovely Sunday. It's kind of a hot one here in Chicago, but you know, not much of a cloud in the sky, so really nice weather. So hey, Richard from Michigan, Jamie's checking in, Pat from Southern California, Janine from Ontario. So thanks so much for joining me. As a friendly reminder, just about everything that I talk about during Sewcial Sunday are things that I've purchased myself. So these are not things that I'm getting paid to talk to you about, but just cool things that I found that I'd like to share with you. And another reminder, everything that I'm scheduling myself to talk about, I link to in the description. So if you're interested in finding out more about any of the notions, fabrics, books, or projects that I talk about, just check that link in the description and you can find out more information there. So before we get started with the notion of the week, I just wanted to give you a reminder that the Minikins Challenge for July is for the Jet Set cinched bag. Here's my personal Jet Set cinched bag that we use when we go traveling. So we put all of our toiletries, razors, contact lens solution, everything in this bag, and it's got mesh pockets to keep everything divided. So as you can see, all our stuff's inside in there. And it cinches closed, so we can either put it in a suitcase, or if we're traveling through TSA and we need to have our liquids separated, I just go ahead and pull out this Jet Set cinched bag, and I made it in fabric that I knew Violet would love. So this is Alexander Henry Stablemates fabric. If you check the link in the description, it'll take you to my blog post. So I have some photos of not only my Jet Set cinched bags, but some of the pattern testers bags, and you can enter the contest on that very same blog post. So if you've already made a Jet Set cinched bag, or if you plan on making one during the month of July, I hope you'll post a photo of your finished project there. And even if you don't have time to make one this month, you can see all of the photos of the lovely Jet Set cinched bags that others have made. And it's really inspiring to see the different fabric choices and trims. Some people use different colors of cording, so it's really fun just to see all of the different projects. So I invite you to go check that out. All right, so I had a message from Pat in the Facebook group a few days ago asking to see how I use our new seam guides. That's an acrylic template. So I'm going to go ahead and slide over. I've got my sewing machine set up over here so I can show you how to use those guides. So this is what the seam guide looks like. It's got a 4-inch ruler along the top edge, and it's got cutouts and measurements for all of the different seam allowances that you might use for your project. So it's got an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance through the 3/4 on this side, and you can use it in a straight stitch sewing machine like mine, or it will especially be helpful if you have a sewing machine where your needle changes position, because sometimes depending on what you're sewing, you might need to use a different seam allowance, or as most of my sewing patterns call for top stitching of an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, sometimes it's hard to know where exactly that position is on the machine. So let me go ahead and show you how this works. So first you're going to start with the needle in the down position, and I'm just going to choose a seam allowance and go ahead and slide this sort of triangle shaped cutout in the machine. I'm going to choose the 1/2 inch seam allowance right here. So I'm just going to slide that 1/2 inch until the needle fits the groove. And you also may have noticed there's horizontal lines running across. These are to help you pick a place on your machine, line it up using one of these lines, and it'll help you get a straight edge. So again, I'm going to slide that 1/2 inch seam allowance in there. I'm going to line up one of those horizontal lines with my feed dogs right here, just so I can get a straight line. And then my daughter Violet lent me some of her washi tape. You can use painter's tape as well. Either of these two tapes will easily remove from the bed of your sewing machine so you don't have a sticky residue. So I'm just going to go ahead and rip off a little piece here. The washi tape's pretty readily available at your local craft store. And I'm just going to line up that washi tape with the side edge of the ruler. So there we go right here. I've got that 1/2 inch seam allowance, and when I need to remove that tape, it'll just easily come off there. So Another quick tip, if you have a needle that moves different positions, make sure you have it in your chosen position before you go ahead and use that seam guide, but it's really easy to use. It's got this little cutout hole also for easy hanging in your sewing machine, or you can go ahead and loop it through some thread or any other material to hang it in your sewing room. So that's how to use the seam guide, really quick and easy. And I'm going to go ahead and move my sewing machine to the floor just so I can have it out of the way. Okay, so this past weekend I got caught up on my summer sampler quilt blocks. I purchased a sewing quilt along for the summer called the Summer Sampler 2018, and I was behind by 4 blocks. The blocks come out every Monday, and I had the best intentions to keep on track and make the block every Monday when the new one came out, but I fell a little bit behind. So I just wanted to show you the 4 blocks that I made. I'm working with all solids, and my background fabric is white, and a lot of the blocks are foundation paper pieced, which I really love. So I'll show you the first block of the bunch, which was just traditionally pieced. So this one right here, this one came together pretty simply, and Violet helped me make the whole block right here. And then there's 3 that are foundation paper pieced out of the 4 that I was catching up on. So let me just show you those blocks. I super love this one, and I love the lime over here. As you can see, I forgot to trim my dog ears, but I left my papers in. I like using fusible applique papers, and the things that I like about the fusible applique papers is that you can print on the non-fusible side, which is what you see here, what I've done here. Another nice thing about these papers is that they're water soluble. So as you can see, I left my papers in the block. I'm actually going to leave the papers in the block. I'm going to machine quilt through them. I'm gonna bind the quilt, and when I wash the quilt for the first time, the awesome thing is that these papers basically dissolve. They're water soluble, so they dissolve in the washing machine on the first wash, and they basically turn to little filaments and or disappear, and you don't feel them in the finished quilt. So I really like the stability that the papers give, especially for the machine quilting. Let me show you another of the foundation paper piece blocks that I made. So I love this one as well. This one came out really cool. And this one was a little bit trickier. This one's sort of like a New York Beauty style type of quilt. So it's got the curve in the center, which was a little bit trickier, but I did have papers for the curved edge as well. And I'm using sort of a rainbow scheme for mine. So here's one of the red/pink blocks. So those are the 4 catch-ups for my summer sampler quilt along. It's not too late to get in on the fun if you're interested in participating in that quilt along. I think the price was $24.99, which I thought was a pretty good value for, I think it's 18 different blocks over the whole summer. So I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing the finished quilt top at the end of the summer. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, what project are you working toward this summer? Do you have a big project or quilt that you're working toward? Do you have maybe a bucket list item, maybe a bag, or a certain project that you plan on making this summer for sure? Let me know in the comments. Mine is the summer sampler quilt along, obviously. I'm interested to see what everyone else is working on, or what your big goal is for the summer, or even if it's just one bag project, what you're hoping to finish for sure this summer. So let me know in the comments. Okay, so the fabric that I've added to my stash for this week is, if you tuned in last week, I showed you the Moda Grunge polka dots. This week I have just the regular Moda Grunge fabrics, which are sort of solids, with that grunge look to them. So let me go ahead and grab these from the side and show you in the overhead view. So I purchased a rather large stash of these from Stash Fabrics. I'm only showing you a few because what I purchased in real life was kind of an embarrassing amount. But the thing I liked most about buying these from Stash Fabrics is that they came with these stickers labeling the color name from the grunge line, which I wasn't expecting, but it's super helpful because I was working on a project a couple weeks ago using one of the purples, and I ran out of the purple grunge, and because there's so many grunges in the purple color and they all look the same on my screen, I actually ordered one and it was the wrong color to replace the one that I needed for my project. So having these labeled is really helpful. So let me just flip through a few of these. They're really pretty in person and so bright. So I just chose some rainbow hues to show you in person. I think I chose 2 of each color. So I've got 2 oranges here I did order a lot more yellow, but I've just got the one yellow color. This one's kind of a sea foam with some lime in it, and this is a super bright lime fabric. And as you can see, the grunge fabrics have, besides the solid base color, sort of scratches of different colors, but in the same color family for the most part, which is really nice and gives a lot of extra texture. And I think this is probably one of my favorites. The Dynasty is a really bright, kind of like pool blue. Here's a royal blue, light lavender, and one of the infamous purples. And like I said, I purchased a lot more than what I'm showing you here, but I think it would take forever if I sat here and poked through all of the colors. And I wanted to show you also, besides quilts, they're good for, I'm working on a small accessories project, and I pulled this fabric from my stash. So this is Cotton and Steel Rifle Paper Company fabrics, and I needed to choose a lining fabric, so I pulled one of the grunge fabrics, and as you can see, it's a really close match with this light blue in the leaves. So I'm using this for my lining fabric as well as some accents on the exterior of the bag, and I'm really happy with how close in color. And I don't normally use a lot of solids for linings, but I love the fact that these are not just solids, but they have a lot more going on with the grungy texture to them. So again, these are Moda Grunge fabrics, and I purchased these particular ones from Stash Fabrics, although your local quilt shop might have some in stock as well. All right, Danny's favorite part of the show. We'd like to invite you to let us know in the comments, so go ahead and type that in right now if you're a bag lady or a bag dude. So go ahead and let us know in the comments right now. I know I'm certainly a huge bag lady, and I love the community that is forming around the bag lady or bag dude term. We also have community that we're trying to spread throughout all areas of the world. So with the help of a Facebook group member named Sherry, we posted by state different groups that are being set up for bag making. If you'd like to meet other bag makers in person, you can find that list in the Facebook group under the Files tab. If you're not already a member of the Facebook group, I hope you'll join us there. It's a great community. People ask questions in the group. If they're stuck on something, they show photos of their finished So Sweetness bags, so it's a lot of fun, and I hope you'll join us over there in the Facebook group. So yesterday, me, Danny, and the kids went to a block party / graduation party. They had bounce houses, games, great food, so it was a lot of fun. And we actually met someone who was another guest of the party that actually does leather work, so it was really cool to find that out. He makes wallets and other very detailed artistic leather work. When he found out that me and Violet did horseback riding, he asked if we had interest in a bridle, or he said he's interested in one day making a saddle. So I thought that was super awesome. It's great talking to other people and finding out what other people are doing as far as working with their hands and being creative with their hands. And I felt like there was a lot of overlap with leather work and bag making, not just making leather bags, but I also felt sort of a camaraderie because I work with cork fabric so much, and a lot of applications with cork fabric are very similar to leather in that you can leave cork raw, and it's a substantial material like leather is. So I thought that was really cool, and just hearing him talk about, he purchased lots of leather from Tandy Leather, and just hearing his experience as far as that kind of creative work was really cool. So there's certainly lots of overlap in the sewing and handwork community. I've talked to people in the past that use sailboat material to make bags from. So there's lots of different applications for bag related things, not just straight up bags made from quilting cotton. So I thought that was really awesome, and that there's people out there doing different types of artistic work with materials like leather. So that was pretty awesome. All right, the book review for this week will be, again, I'm gonna slightly riff on the book review and review a pattern and a template instead. So I'm gonna slide over to the side camera and show you that pattern and template right now. Okay, so this is the Glam Clam quilt pattern designed by Latifa Safir. I purchased, actually, I found when I was cleaning my sewing room, I found that I had purchased this template some time ago, and I knew I didn't have the pattern, so I went ahead and purchased the pattern. The acrylic templates come in 3 different sizes, 12-inch being the largest. I purchased the 12-inch template because I wanted to finish my quilt faster, having the larger clam shells in it. And the template cuts not only the clam shells, but also muffin tops, orange peels, which are really useful. Here's the orange peel right here. Half and quarter circles, full circles if you're cutting on the fold. And there's instructions that came with the acrylic template on how to cut your fabric and how to use the template. So very useful template to have. And I just wanted to show you briefly the quilt pattern. Let me throw this to the side. So here's the quilt pattern. It's beautifully illustrated, full color, and it has instructions for all 3 sizes of the clam, so 6-inch, 8-inch, or what I had, the 12-inch template. Here's some beautiful examples of the clamshell quilts. I especially love this one with sort of the text and the neutral colors. Here's the bigger clams right here. And there's information how many clams you'll need to cut based on what size quilt. So there's 6 different sizes of quilts that you can make for each of the different sizes of clams. And there's very detailed instructions, not only how to use the template, but how to sew all of those clams together. So again, great pattern and template, very useful template because of the curves and the inner curves on the clams, designed by Latifa Safir, and the templates are sold separately, so if you're just interested in the quilt pattern, that's fine too. Okay, I'm going to stay here at the overhead camera. So my demonstration today is how to make double-sided straps. So I prepared 2 of these in advance. This is what I mean by a double-sided strap. So one side of the strap is one fabric, and the other side is another. So both sides can be quilting cotton. You can have one side being cork fabric like I do and the other side quilting cotton. And I also made them in 2 different sizes. So for making straps for bags, I often use metal rectangles. My preferred sizes for metal rectangles are either 1.5 inch, and that's the measurement on the inside of the rectangle, or 1 inch right here. So I prepared these straps for fitting inside the metal rectangles for bag handles. So let me show you how to make those. So I went ahead and pre-cut my fabrics. So let's start with the example of the 1.5 inch wide strap. So I cut my fabric 2 times the width of the metal rectangle. So this is 1.5 inch. So I cut my fabric 3 inches wide, and I also cut a piece of Pellon Shape Flex interfacing the same width. And the Pellon Shape Flex is to go with the quilting cotton if you decided to use that. And I also went ahead and cut a piece of cork fabric that's also 3 inches wide. So I had 2 examples right here. So in this finished strap, I had the raw edges going to the edge of the strap. That's for if your strap will be attached within the seams of the bag. My second example is if you will have the edges of the strap showing on the outside of the bag, such as this Baker Street bag. As you can see, I have the straps on the outside, and you wouldn't want raw edges of quilting cotton showing if you're using such an application. So in this second example, I have my raw edges folded under, and that's the example that I'm going to show you right here for the cork fabric. So first I'm going to go ahead and flip to the wrong side of the quilting cotton, and I'm going to fuse the bumpy side of the Shape Flex to the wrong side of the fabric until it's properly fused in place. Okay, you'll also need a ruler and a marking pen or a chalk. Okay. Okay, so first, because I cut my fabric larger than the cork fabric by 1/4 inch on each side, I'm going ahead to go and mark the short ends with a 1/4 inch line so that I can go ahead and fold those to the wrong side of the fabric. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and press that to the wrong side first before preparing my strap. And again, if your strap edges will be concealed in the seam of the bag, you can go ahead and skip this step and just leave the raw edges of the quilting cotton showing on both of the short ends. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler again, and I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. So since my strap is 3 inches wide, I'm going to draw the line that's 1.5 inches from the side edge. So there's my line right there. I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to press that long edge just in toward that center line, just like this. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Because I used a friction pen and my marks are starting to disappear, I'm just going to go ahead and bring it in to meet the other long edge. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and prepare the cork fabric. So I'm going to flip to the wrong side of the cork. Again, I'm going to take my ruler and make a mark right down the center, which is going to be 1.5 inches for a 3-inch wide strap. And I'm actually going to use a product now called Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape. So if you have used this in the past, you may have used it for attaching zippers to zipper pockets. It's a 2-sided tape. So I'm going to take the side that's sticky and I'm going to stick it about 1/8 of an inch away from the line that I drew. And I'm going to do the same thing for the opposite side of the line as well. And make sure you take your fingers and push it down so the adhesive has a chance to properly adhere. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and peel that paper back using the edge of my fingernail to pull it. And as you can see, that's the adhesive right there. Okay, I'm going to bring this long edge up to that center line. So since I can't iron the cork, I'm using the Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape to hold it in place. And then I'll do the same thing on the opposite edge. So just go ahead and bring those raw edges so that they meet. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and take that prepared quilting cotton, place it so the raw edges are against each other. And I'm going to go ahead and use some Wonder Clips to clip it in place. And as you can see here, I kind of overshot it a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that little bit of extra so that the edges are aligned. I'm just going to put Wonder Clips around the entire outer edge and take it over to the sewing machine, and you'll stitch using 1/8 of an inch, and you can go ahead and hit all 4 edges. So that's what that finished strap will look like. Another option, instead of having the fabric go all the way to the edge of the cork fabric, is to make a strap that's a little bit less wide. So I went ahead and did the same thing with cutting quilting cotton and shape flex interfacing and my cork fabric, this time for that 1-inch wide strap, except I cut my quilting cotton this time 3/8 of an inch less wide. So since this is a 1-inch finished rectangle, I cut my cork fabric 2 inches wide, and I cut my quilting cotton minus 3/8 of an inch. So as you can see, it's not as wide. So I'm going to go ahead and first attach that shape flex interfacing to the wrong side of the fabric. This time I'm going to leave the short ends raw, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that to the same size, the same length as the cork. And obviously if you're making this for a strap, you need, you know, a long strap, usually at least 42 inches, especially if you're making an adjustable strap. But for my example, I've just gotten these little pieces right here. So we're going to do the same thing as we did before. Draw a line that's right down the middle. So mine is a little bit over, it's 1 5/8 of an inch. And gosh, I'm terrible at math, so that'll be right about here. I'm going to draw a line right down the middle. And I'll do the same thing for the cork fabric. Okay, so again, I'm going to press both of the long edges in toward that center line that I drew. And same thing on the other side. Okay, and I find it helpful sometimes to throw my ruler on top of the fabric as it's cooling, and it helps everything stay in place nice and flat. Okay, the process for the cork is the same as before. I'm going to go ahead and take that Dritz Wash Away Wonder Tape and stick it down on both sides. And I also wanted to mention while I'm sticking this tape down that you can use other materials for your second side of your strap besides just plain fabric. So I pulled out some decorative ribbon from my stash. This is gauze grain ribbon, and you can certainly use this for one side of your strap as well, and that would look really cute, especially with the other side being a solid cork fabric. Renaissance Ribbons has a lot of different design choices, and Tula Pinks designed quite a lot of ribbon for Renaissance Ribbons, so it gives you a lot of options, especially if you're a Tula Pink fan like I am. So again, I'm going to go ahead and stick that down by bringing the raw edge even with that line that I drew down the center. And then because my fabric is 3/8 of an inch less wide than the cork fabric, when I place that down, you should see a little bit of the cork fabric showing on the top and the bottom of that quilting cotton. So it just gives you an additional look, and certainly if you'd like to make the fabric thinner you can, but just a couple options for making those double-sided straps and giving your bags some extra visual interest. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed that demonstration on how to make two-sided straps. I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments. Have you modified a strap before? So have you perhaps added rivets to your straps? Have you done a double-sided strap in the past? Or have you used different materials like webbing or other things for changing up your strap? Or do you just like following the pattern to the letter and making perhaps a solid strap with either quilting cotton or cork fabric? So let me know in the comments what you like to do or what you like to see when you're making your strap. I'm really curious to find out. All right, if you enjoy our videos, I'd like to invite you to hit the share button on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'd love it if you could hit the thumbs up button, which is the like button. It really helps us out so much. Facebook really likes to see lots of likes and shares on their videos, Facebook and YouTube, and they consider sharing our videos with more people that may be interested in them if the videos are getting lots of likes and shares. So we really appreciate so much if you could help us out and do that, and thank you so much. All right, if you have a question for me, either a sewing related question, bag making related question, a question about a notion, let me know in the comments right now. I'll answer some questions live. If I don't get to your question tonight, I hope you'll join us for Ask Sarah this Tuesday. Before I get to the questions, I wanted to announce the winner from last week's giveaway. The giveaway last week was for a full set of Minikins acrylic templates, which was an amazing prize, and the winner was Angela Hallbrook. So congratulations to Angela. I've already contacted Angela on social media and have gotten an email back from Angela. So congratulations to you on that great prize. All right, let's start off with some questions. Thoughtfully Sewn says, will you be making an acrylic template for the cork fabric wallet, particularly the credit card pattern piece? You know what, I hadn't even had that on my list, but that's a great idea because for the wallet, especially since you're cutting it raw, it's really important to have those pieces as exact as you can make them, and I know the acrylic templates would make them exactly exact, so I'll add that to my list and let Ed and Robin know. We're still trying to catch up with getting some of the acrylic templates in stock. It seems like every time we get a box of them, they seem to fly out really fast and be gone within a day. So we're trying to get a handle on that, but as soon as we do, we'll venture out into having some more acrylic templates in the shop. Kathy says, if I were to use a black marker on the back of the template, would it make the marks more visible? Yeah, I think so, and you certainly could use a black marker, perhaps a really thin one to get in the grooves. I'm not sure if you're talking about some of the markings, maybe the horizontal markings on the seam guides or something similar, but yeah, you sure could go ahead over it with a permanent black marker.
When you're doing your presentation, someone note about that paper piecing dissolvable paper. Do you carry that? Where can they find it?
Okay, Danny's letting me know off to the side. Someone asked about the fusible papers that I used in my quilt blocks. There's a link in the description. I carry it in my shop because I love it and I use it so much. Beforehand, before we started carrying it, I used to always need at least 5 to 10 packs on hand at all time because I go through it that quickly. But there's a link in the description if you're interested in that paper, and we do have it in the shop in stock right now. Sue says, is there a way of seeing your previous shows in chronological order? Yes, there is for Sewcial Sunday. If you actually check the link in the description, it'll take you to my blog post for tonight's show. If you scroll to the very bottom of the blog post, I have in chronological order by month all of the shows linked there, so you can watch them all from the beginning. I admit the quality of our technology has vastly improved this year, so our shows a year ago were a little bit, they were fine, but they're much better now. So, but they're all linked to in the description for today's blog post. Cheryl says, I have made the Oslo bag twice and I love the bag, but my lining is always turning out too big. What am I doing wrong? So you're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Depending on the fabric that you're using, you might consider taking in the seam allowance. So what I mean by that is starting with the seam allowance as directed in the pattern, and then gradually veering it in toward a bigger seam allowance. So if you were using, say, a 1/2 inch seam allowance, you can go ahead and veer it in, starting with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then veer it in toward 5/8 or larger. And you can keep taking it in until it's the tightness that you prefer. Also for that bag, I think I had a note in the pattern instructions, if you like to use a fusible spray, not a basting spray, but a spray adhesive, you can go ahead and do that, spraying the wrong side of the exterior before you slide that lining in there, and that'll make everything really, really tight as well. So either of those options would be okay for that particular pattern or for other patterns as well. Pat says, will you be offering templates for any of your handbags? Yes, we will. I know some of the bags are really big. I had requests, several requests for the Sublime bag, so we'll try to get to that one hopefully next month. Like I said, we have to get our Minikins templates under control and in stock pretty much all the time, and then we'll venture out into templates for other bags that I have. Okay, Danny's scanning for more questions. Pat says, will you be making a separate video for the zipper on the satellite bag? I'm really struggling. I'm not sure if you have the video that we already have out there for the satellite bag. We don't plan on doing a separate video since we've already done that one. If you do have the video and are stuck on a specific part, feel free to email me. My email is sarah@sewsweetness.com. That's Sarah with no H. I'm more than happy to go into that with you further if the video wasn't helping you, but we do have all the steps shown in that particular video. Michelle says, what size zippers do you use and why? So there's a couple different zippers. Let me see if I have one handy that I could just grab. Okay, so there's a couple different zippers that I pretty much use all the time, and I do have a video on zippers on my YouTube channel and on my website, so if you're interested, I think if you Google Sew Sweetness different zippers, that video will come up. I mainly use number 3 dress skirt zippers. The tape on this zipper is about 7/8 of an inch wide, and it has a smaller pull. Or a handbag zipper. So handbag zippers have either 1 or 2 pulls, either is fine. The zipper tape is wider on the handbag zippers. So the handbag zippers are generally 1 1/4 of an inch wide, so definitely wider than the number 3 zipper. On my particular machine, and I know other machines will be the case for this as well, for handbag zippers, I don't need to use my zipper foot. I can just use my regular foot that I use for general sewing because of the wider tape, which is really nice. For the number 3 zipper, I definitely always use my zipper foot. Some patterns call for a specific kind of zipper. I know some of my patterns do. If it's not noted, if you have a choice between the two, you might go for the handbag zipper just because of the ease of sewing it in, and also for the bigger pulls, which are really nice. Amber says, when you finish your quilt tops, do you quilt them yourself or do you send them out to a long arm resource? That's a really good question. If it's a smaller quilt, like a baby quilt, last year I did machine quilt a baby quilt for my brother's daughter. I did machine quilt a small Christmas quilt for myself. If it's a larger size or if I want really detailed quilting, I do send it out for long arming service, and I have done so in the past, and I really like how it looks. But sometimes, especially, not that I make all that many quilts, but it does get kind of expensive if you're sending every single quilt out for long arming. So the smaller ones I do try to do myself with my walking foot and just some simple straight line quilting. Jeanette says, how do you organize your fabric? So my fabric is generally organized by either designer or type. So I've got these, let me see if I can grab them from behind me. I've got these baskets that I've purchased on Amazon. They're just metal baskets. They came in different finishes and sizes. But I organize these by sort of monochromatic prints in each of the different colors. So this is my blue bin. I have all the rainbow colors, red, green, and so on. I also have these bins for solids because I like using solids a lot. So I have separate bins for monochromatic fabrics, which just means they have a design with a color. And then my solid bins. And then the rest of the fabric is stacked by fabric designer. So everything above my head, all the shelves that you cannot see, are all Tula Pink stacks. And I have some fabrics down here. I have a stack with Caterina Roccella from Art Gallery Fabrics, a Melody Miller stack, Allison Glass. And then I have stacks with just random assortments over here on the side. So I tried to fold all of my fabrics to get maximum width on my bookcases. So they fill the full width of the bookcases and they're each 7 inches wide. I use the Billy bookcases from IKEA. So I found that from folding fabric in the past, if I don't fold to maximize the whole area of the bookcase, I'm wasting space. So I did measure the bookcases to get everything folded so I can buy more fabric. Thoughtfully Sewn says, what is the status of the, I think she meant Tula Pink fabric, soon going on sale? We haven't received it yet, but I did get an emailed invoice. They're sending it to us in either 2 or 3 different shipments. So the first shipment had all of the main print, which was the possessed print with the faces of the sisters. Hopefully we'll get those this week. As soon as we get them, we'll list them on the website, and we'll be selling bundles as well as what I'm calling bag packs. So it's exterior fabric and a lining fabric that I've chosen for making a bag. So I've kind of curated those packs, and it's 2-yard bundles for the bag packs. Alicia says, finally made my first bag. Yay! Good job, Alicia. I made the medium crimson and clover trim case, and it is not very stiff. I used duck cloth as the outside. Could this be the reason? It depends on what interfacing you used. I'm not sure if you use the interfacing as called for in the pattern. The pattern calls for foam interfacing for the exterior, Shape Flex for the lining, and then Peltex inserts for the top and the bottom lid, which makes them very structured and, well, I guess stiff, yeah, you know, especially for the lid. So if you use different interfacings, I think maybe you might have, since you use duck cloth, that might be the reason why it's not as structured as the foam. So you can either let me know in the comments, or if you prefer to email me separately, and I'm happy to follow up on that question. Lorraine says, has anyone found cord locks? So I purchased cord locks from Emmeline Bags, the cord locks that I used on the Jet Set cinched bag. I have found some in the store, but I found that they were either too big or too small, but Emmeline Bags had some, and that's emmelinebags.com, and that's where I got mine. Bonnie says, you can quilt larger quilts on your new embroidery machine. I will email you the info. Thanks, Bonnie. We did see some quilt as you go quilt blocks, but I have no idea about quilting a quilt on an embroidery machine, so I'd love details on that. That sounds really exciting, actually. All right. Kim says, do you have any tips for sewing over the thick seams with a non-industrial machine? The seams are sometimes difficult to sew over, especially going over multiple layers and zipper tabs. I don't know if I have my hammer here. We saw a hammer in the shop. It's like a yellow hammer with not an acrylic or rubber. Nylon. Danny says it's a nylon. It's called the Seam Whacker, and we have it in the shop under the Notions tab. Hammering your seam before you sew it really helps a lot because it helps get everything nice and flat. An iron can do a good job, but that Seam Whacker can do a really, really good job at getting it nice and flat, so your sewing machine has an easier time. Also, if you're still having trouble, you might consider trimming back some of the interfacing. So especially if you're using foam interfacing, you can trim it back after you've sewn your seam so that there's less foam in the seam allowance. So either of those would be good options for that. Diane says, are your Friday sew-alongs only going to be for the Facebook group? So our Friday sew-alongs, which we attempted this past Friday, we had some technical difficulties. It's going to be the first Friday of every month at 7 p.m. Central Time. We do post the link to, it's for a group meeting, so we're allowed to have 25 people so along with us in the group meeting. We do post that in the Facebook group, but we're planning on having a live stream for that, so either on Facebook or YouTube. We plan on streaming that live. It didn't work so well this past Friday because, like I said, we had difficulties, but the plan is to have it a live stream just like Sewcial Sunday is. Elise says, are you going to QuiltCon in February? I've actually never gone to QuiltCon. I wasn't sure if it was in my exact wheelhouse being a bag maker. I do love seeing the modern quilts on Instagram. I may consider it. I'm not sure. Is it in Nashville this year or next year? Yeah, if we move to Tennessee, I'm sure I'll be there if it's in Nashville especially. Nancy says, I enjoyed seeing both your children recently. Will they be making another appearance this week? You know, I'm not sure. As far as the appearances from the kids, Danny's definitely on the show with me on Tuesdays. We more or less leave it up to them. Violet does love helping out a lot, especially if she's had a finished sewing project. She might like to be on the show. William is not so interested in it, so we don't force him, but if he does show any interest, we're more than happy to have him on the show with us if he likes to be. Kathy wants to know, do you double sew your seams even with 50 weight thread? It's been years since I've double sewed a seam. I do remember a time where I double and triple sewed seams, but oh gosh, that's probably been maybe 5 or 6 years since I've done that. I don't know if it's luck or it just doesn't happen, but I've never had a bag rip open or a pocket rip open. And I have used both 50 weight thread and 40 weight thread on bags. I prefer 40 weight, but some of the thread I bought in like packages and it came 50 weight thread. So if I need a certain color and I have it in 50 weight, I'll use 50 weight for a bag. Cheryl is making a comment. They're great little hammers. I use it all the time, even when quilting. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's the hammers or the seam whackers are helpful for the seams also, especially seams can get really thick as you know when you're foundation paper piecing or just traditional piecing, and the hammers really help to flatten the seam so when you're ready to quilt you don't have big bunches of extra fabric everywhere. Paula says, I go to the quilt shows for the fabric and there are a lot of bag vendors as well. Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know. I've only been to an industry trade show called Quilt Market, so I've not been to other quilt shows like QuiltCon, but they seem really interesting and something that I would like as far as visual inspiration. Evelyn says, I'm making my first quilt and it is all done in the hoop on the embroidery machine. It's a Hoop Sisters quilt. I'll have to write that down. I don't have a pen handy, but I'll try to remember that for after the show to check out Hoop Sisters. So thanks, Evelyn. Michelle says, Danny Michaela says to you, look at this dude, and is screeching now too. So we had on our first Friday chat, it was a chance to get to know lots of members of the Facebook group better, and Michelle and Danny have this thing going with different funny sounds and different, I don't even know what they're called. Kid noises that our kids make.
Are doing to be annoying.
Danny says, what our kids are doing to be annoying. Myrta says, what would you recommend to start paper piecing? So if you're interested in foundation paper piecing, let me try to think of some of the easiest blocks. There's a lot of nice easy ones out there. There's even some free ones. I believe there's a foundation paper piecing website that's all free blocks. I really like, this one was actually really easy, this one right here. If I flip to the back, it's only the two different sections. So it's this section right here and this one down here, and it's just repeated. So this is just 4 blocks repeated. Again, this was the summer sampler. Yeah, these were really easy. There's a lot of great foundation paper piecers that I have purchased patterns from. Maybe I'll show you on next Sunday's show some of the patterns that I've purchased or made in the past. Penny says, I just hopped on first time. So welcome, Penny. I hope you enjoyed tonight's chat, and I hope you'll join us for future chats. Shauna says, will you be getting the Woolly Felted Wonder mat in your shop? That's a great question. They're actually coming tomorrow. I ordered, I think, 3 or 4 different Woolly Felted Wonders mats, and that's, let me grab my mat. That's the mat I use for my demonstrations, and I actually use these in my sewing room. When I made these foundation paper piece blocks, I had my sewing machine right here, and I had the mat right next to my machine with the iron, so I didn't have to get up and keep going to my ironing board. This is the 17-inch size. I also got, I think, the 13.5-inch, 8-inch, I might have got the humongous one. So we'll have those as soon as we get those listed tomorrow in the shop. Yes, I think that's all I have to say about that. But these are really great. I love using mine for sure. Melissa says, can you use bias tape instead of fold over elastic for the Jet Set bag? Yes, you sure can. You can use bias tape for the, there's mesh pockets in the Jet Set, and the raw edges are covered or trimmed with the fold over elastic. You can use the bias tape instead because it's not on a curve, it's just a straight edge. You don't have to actually cut it on the bias. You can just cut your strips of fabric. I would say to cut them at 2 1/4 of an inch wide and fold them in half wrong sides together, and that'll work too for the Jet Set bag. Hot Becky says, will you be making a machine embroidery file with your logo for those who sell your bags that we make? Oh, that's a great question. Actually, someone emailed me our logo that they digitized. I have it in my email box that I saved, so I'll investigate that and I'll check with them and see if it's okay if we post that in the Facebook group. That would be really cool. Zena Morgan says, I have to say I got my Juki a month ago and I am totally in love with it. This gal is fast. Yeah, I actually sew in the medium setting on my Juki. Violet sews on the slowest setting, which is the little tortoise on the tortoise icon on the machine, but I super love mine. Kathy says, Zena, I'm with you, love my Juki. It's a really great machine, and actually that gentleman I mentioned that we were talking to at the party regarding the leather work, we were telling him about the Juki, and we said we'd be happy for him to come over and try the Juki with his leather and see how he likes it, because it really is a great machine. Michelle says, would the seam roller do the same thing as the seam whacker? I think I have my seam roller right here. I don't know where my seam whacker is. Probably in the abyss of my desk, but here's the seam roller. I actually use this in combination with my iron for the foundation paper piece block. The seam whacker, because the roller is just, you know, you're just rolling, I feel like the seam whacker has more of pressure. Thank you, Danny. More pressure in regards to getting that seam super flat. Obviously you're hammering it down as opposed to just rolling it. So a bit of more of an impact, I would say. Veronica says, I'll be stocking your shop tomorrow, then I want that mat. If I can, maybe I'll get them listed tonight before I go to bed. But yeah, the Woolly Felted Wonders mats are great. And I have a few people that have mentioned odor because the mats are wool, smelling a bit like a sheep or a wet dog. I haven't found that the case for my mats, although I do use starch alternative spray, which is scented, so that might be covering up the wool scent from using the mat. But I use flatter spray, so if anyone's interested in flatter spray in combination with the mat, that's what I use. Not to get rid of the smell, but just because I like using flatter spray for ironing and pressing my fabrics. Gwen says, what size woolly mat do you like best, Sarah? Well, the only mats I have are the 17-inch mats. As you can see, this is a really good size. The mat that I was, the quilt block I was working on was 12-inch block. So for reference, Danny, do you mind moving the question off the screen?
You want more questions on the screen?
No, move the question off the screen.
This one?
Danny, no. Danny. Danny. Okay, so here's my 17-inch mat. There's the 12-inch block, just for reference. We're going to be getting also the 13.5-inch, which would be just a little bit bigger than this 12-inch block, or 8-inch mats as well. I like this, you know, obviously the bigger the mat, the more pricey it is, but for what I'm using it for, I like using the 17-inch mats.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
All right, Danny says that's it on the questions. Thanks so much for asking your questions in the comments. We'll be answering some more this Tuesday. I didn't forget, Danny, about the giveaway. Let me grab the giveaway prize from the side over here, and actually I'm going to show the giveaway prize in the side view camera, if that's okay, Danny.
Maybe.
Okay, so the giveaway prize for this week is a big bundle of handbag zippers. So not these fabrics here, but just the zippers. So I went down and picked out sort of a rainbow array of colors. How many zippers we got? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 zippers right here. Handbag zippers in 30-inch size. Okay, thanks, Dan. You can put it back on the front view. So this bundle of handbag zippers will go to one lucky randomly drawn winner. I'll choose a winner at the end of the day this Saturday, which is, I'm not sure what the date for this Saturday is, but all you have to do to enter this giveaway is answer this question in the comments. So whether you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, make sure you're signed into your account first, and then go ahead and on YouTube, often the comment area is at the end of your phone, cell phone or device. Let me know in the comments, do you use tap water or distilled water to fill your iron? I admit I'm rather lazy and I've always used tap water. I use the Singer Expert Finish iron. I actually have 2 of these because we use these at the retreats. So I've had this iron for 6 years and I super love it, and I've only ever used tap water because I'm too lazy to get distilled water. But let me know your answer in the comments, either tap water or distilled water. So thank you so much for joining me for Sewcial Sunday. I'll see you again next Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Have a great week and happy sewing.